Hey there, and welcome to this eclipse video where I want to discuss with you a few concepts around what eclipse is, how they're different to regular lunations, how to spot them in a birth chart, so how to tell if somebody is born under an eclipse or not, and what to expect a little bit around the upcoming eclipse cycle. So, first and foremost, an eclipse is a special type of new or full moon. They are different to the regular lunations that we experience every month. An eclipse happens in seasons. And those seasons happen every 6 months. And so what sets off an eclipse season is when the sun moves within range of either the north or the south node. So the north and south node are calculated points in the sky that are the intersection of the moon's orbit around the Earth and then the Earth's orbit around the sun. So without getting too technical, basically what they are is imagine putting one hula hoop inside another hula hoop, and the points where those two hoops touch are where the nodes are. And so they're not visible bodies in the sky, they're calculated points. And so the nodes are always in opposition to each other. So if the south node is in Capricorn, where it currently is, the north node can only be in Cancer. Later in 2020, in May, the north node will then shift out of Cancer and into Gemini, and therefore the south node will slip into Sagittarius. So that being said, eclipses and eclipse cycles will always activate a house polarity or a house axis in your birth chart. So if there's one node in the 10th, the other node has to be in the 4th. If we're looking at a node being in the 1st, the other one can only be in the 7th, for example. So when the sun moves into the same sign as either the north or the south node, it sets off an eclipse season. So on the solstice on December 21, the sun moved into Capricorn and shared space in the sky as the south node. So an eclipse season technically starts when the sun gets within 18 degrees of the node. So that's what we look for when we're looking at eclipses in birth charts, but we'll get to there in a moment. So when the sun is sharing space with the south node, as it is currently, any lunations that occur within 18 degrees of that will be an eclipse. And so what is an eclipse? These are different to regular lunations because while a normal new or full moon will align at the same or the opposite zodiacal degree, what makes eclipses particularly different is the fact that they align not only on the same degree or the opposing degree if it's a lunar eclipse, but they also align on the same plane. So that is why we get the blockage of light. So when we have a solar eclipse, the moon is actually covering over the sun from our perspective. And in a lunar eclipse, the sun, the moon, and the earth are all not only occupying the same zodiacal degree, but they're also aligned on the same plane. So on the lunar eclipse, the earth is blocking the light of the sun getting to the moon. And the moon looks a little bit red because of the way that light disperses around the earth and reflects upon the moon. So we do have a phenomena, an astrological event that makes these lunations look different. And of course, they feel different because they are. So in ancient times, these lunations, these eclipses were kind of considered like omens from the gods. And they weren't considered to be all about new intentions and manifesting. They were actually quite feared because light is being blocked. And it will either be the solar light or the lunar light. And in astrology and on Earth, the sun is the primary light source in the day and the moon is the primary light source of the night. So when either of those lights are being blocked, it was considered to be a kind of scary or meaningful omen. So eclipses are some type of message from the sky. They always have something to, pun intended, shed light on, in a reverse kind of way. But they do bring about change, first and foremost. So it's also to remember to keep in mind the idea that one of the lights is being diminished. And so this is a time of withdrawal. It's a time of less. It's a time of resting. It's a time of, going within. And because eclipses also bring a lot of signification around the nodes, what eclipses can help us do is align ourselves with some of our inner desires with our outer intentions, or perhaps some of our inner intentions with our external desires. So the North Node in astrology is often linked to some of the hungers, these insatiable desires, these insatiable goals that we have as human beings in the material realm. And they are also linked, the nodes are linked to the idea of the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. So the North Node is the dragon's head, where it's this desire to consume, this desire to have more, this desire that is, as I mentioned, insatiable, almost like a Pac-Man, just going along and eating all the things. The South Node is a different energy. It's more of an internalized or a depletive energy. It's a little bit more to do with what we consume. The North Node eventually has to be excreted, the South. So it does have a lot more signification around purging, cleansing, purifying, and loss, like letting go of something, surrendering to something. So the South Node is a little bit more of a spiritualizing type of influence. And it's about a lower level of energy and vitality. And the North is almost like this hungry sort of dragon's head just wanting to consume and devour. So what the eclipses kind of do, because each eclipse, even if one is aligned on the South Node, the next one will be on the North Node, and of course vice versa. They do offer up opportunities to realign some of our ideas around loss and gain, goals and desires, and our needs and our wants. And also themes to do with authenticity. If you're living a life that is burning you on the inside and you're not happy about, the eclipses can be these catalysts for dramatic and sudden change. If you're not happy with the internal world and it's impacting your external world, you can start to shift and rearrange things under an eclipse. So when we are looking at eclipses, particularly these ones, we're really honing in on the area of your chart where Cancer and Capricorn occupy or govern. If you've got an ascendant in Cancer or Capricorn, if you've got your midheaven in Cancer or Capricorn, this is also going to be a potent energy for you during this month. So this time in between eclipses is this sort of liminal portal where veils are thinner, time feels different, the energy is a little bit more electric. It can feel a little bit like a cosmic purgatory in a way, because it's like you're neither here nor there. You're not manifesting, you're not doing things on the regular. As I said, it's a disruption of our regular cycles. Light is being blocked so something else can be revealed. And stillness is the only way that we can really hear or see what is to be revealed. So that is a time to cleanse, rest, purify, particularly at the moment when we've just had the South Node eclipse in Capricorn. And it's very much about that cleansing and purifying before new beginnings can start. So if you are into doing new moon rituals or new moon meditations and setting intentions and desires, particularly because we are going into not only a new year, but a new decade, a new era of astrology as well, really if you want to do something from a a moon ritual perspective, wait until 24th in the north. We will have a new moon in Aquarius, and it happens 25th here in the southern hemisphere. So that is a really potent lunation, because that will really set some themes that will be triggered throughout 2020, but especially in 2021. So eclipses are a chance to align your internal sphere and your external sphere and shift, adjust, rearrange, or change what is not right for you. And so sometimes this can happen from us, and sometimes it can happen to us. Eclipses are tricky to predict. They are our astrological joker in our pack of sky cards, if you like. They're a bit maverick in their energy. They are elusive and hard to predict. So they are a little bit like an eclipse and a Mercury retrograde combined with a Uranus transit all at once. So how to identify an eclipse when looking at a birth chart? So it's actually pretty easy once you know how. So I've got the chart up here for the next eclipse, which happens on the 11th of January here in Australia and the 10th in the Northern Hemisphere. So when you're looking at a chart, firstly, you want to get the position of the sun and see if it occupies the same sign as either the south node or the north node. If it does, you're born in an eclipse cycle or an eclipse season. Now, the next step is to identify whether the moon is either full or it's new. And if it was new, it would be in the same sign as the sun. And so that will tell you whether you were born under a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse. Now, sometimes you'll see charts where the sun is with the north node or the south node. That will tell us that you were born in the eclipse season, but unless the moon is full or new, you weren't born on the eclipse itself. So let's just say, for example, you were born with the south node on the sun, but the moon was halfway between the cycle. Then that's not going to be an eclipse, but it will be in the eclipse season. So if you're born under an eclipse, you sometimes will find that life has a little bit more of a fated quality. And when eclipses are active in your chart, regardless of whether you're a eclipse baby or not, eclipses, to me, they feel like an invisible hand pushing you in a direction that might defy logic, that you don't fully understand, but somehow feels right or ordained or destined in some way. So really look at the area that Cancer Capricorn is activating for you in your own birth chart, and reflect on the ways in the last year or so when the node first moved into Cancer, November 2018, how those life themes and those life topics may have had a destined quality, where there was change, where there was flux, where perhaps some of your efforts didn't really have to require a whole lot of work to generate momentum. You might have had loss in one area, gain in another, or there might have been an even Steven type of situation where the loss and the gain kind of equated. But that's something to reflect upon in respect to how it works in your own birth chart. So the upcoming eclipse is an eclipse in Cancer. So what might we expect from that? The eclipse is the moon is in Cancer. It's in her own sign, and she is there with the south node. Now, this isn't a total lunar eclipse. It's only partial. The reason we can see that is because the node and the sun are not that close together. They are actually 12 degrees apart. And for an eclipse to take place, they can't be any more than 18. So this eclipse is on the higher end of the range to how far we can take an eclipse orb, if you like. Whereas the eclipse that took place in Capricorn, December 25 and 6, that was a total solar eclipse because the node was at 8, the lunation, I think, was at 4 or 5. So that was very total. And we've seen pictures of that online, no doubt. So we've got the North Node in Cancer, and it's an eclipse. So the sign of Cancer and the moon, it's very much about nurturing. It's about the past. It's about sentimental heirlooms or feelings or things to do with the past, with the family, with the clan, if you like. But it's on the North Node. So there's a sense here that maybe there has to be a breakage or a pull away from some of the past or some of the things that are comfortable and familiar in order to realize a potential or to take life to the next step or to level up in the Cancer area of your own life. On the other side of the sky, we've got the sun at 20 degrees of Capricorn, and Mercury is cazimi, the sun. So Mercury is super, super tight there, and in that elevated and special position known as cazimi. So Mercury is moving very quickly through the sky, and it's making its superior conjunction to the sun at this point in time. So this does tell us that our thoughts, our ideas have to be further flung or further afield than what we might have them at the present moment. It might be thinking about outside of the self or outside of the feelings or outside of what we know to be true in the present moment. So this is about big ideas, big visions for the future. Now, combined with that, we've also got the South Node and Jupiter forming a conjunction there at 8 degrees. So again, there's a breakage away or a falling away or a purification around ideas to do with beliefs, opinions, and the things that we thought or knew to be true. So combined, this sort of tells me that perhaps in order to realize a potential or to launch forward into the future, there may need to be a shifting or a rearranging of some of your thoughts, ideas, beliefs, opinions in order to do that. So as we are on the cusp of this Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which is really flavoring the entire skies of not only January, but 2020, as we have just come out of a massive process of cleansing and purification with Saturn-South Node conjunctions in 2019. We are now at a lunar eclipse in Cancer with Mercury conjoined the Sun and the South Node conjoined Jupiter. So it might be about letting go of limiting ideas, limiting beliefs, all the things you got told that are no longer true for you. This is about stepping out on a limb and realizing that you can do something. You do have the power to rearrange your ideas, your thoughts, your opinions, in order to reach a goal or to drive forward towards something that is meaningful or inspired to you. A full moon eclipse, a lunar eclipse are more dramatic and more emotional than a solar eclipse. It's the moon. Also, lunar eclipses last longer than solar eclipses. Lunar eclipses can last hours, solar eclipses last minutes. So lunar eclipses are a little bit more emotional, a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more deep. It's bringing up the internal things. But the internal things that can propel us or catapult us or launch pad us into leveling up in some way. So look at those Cancer Capricorn parts of your chart and work out what you want and what you might need to shift some beliefs and ideas around in order to get that thing. Now, this isn't the time to go all gangbusters on goals and doing all the things, but it's just be still, meditate, reflect upon, observe what's there, observe what comes up, and acknowledge it, feel it. It is the moon, and recognize what might need to be eliminated, shifted, moved, rearranged, or thought differently from a new perspective. When we can shift things in the mind, we can shift things in the body and in our reality. And this is very much what this lunar eclipse does promise. So if you are looking for some better energy to set these intentions in motion, do stay tuned for that new moon in Aquarius, 4 degrees on January 24 and January 25. And I'd look forward to hearing your comments in the comments box below about this eclipse and how you've found the season so far. All right, it's been great to connect with you once again, and I look forward to catching you in the next video.